Hi everyone, I'm the plant propagator and welcome to my channel. Today I'm in a laboratory in Southwest Florida, and I'm sorry about the background noise, but that's the hood that I'm working in that is running. What I wanted to do today was talk with you a little bit about how I transfer the orchids in the laboratory, and in general how I treat tissue. And that's what I'm working with, and that's what I want to talk with you about. These are seedlings. They're protocorms. They're small plants, and they can be treated in different ways. You know, the media that they go on is all the same. The conditions that they grow on is all the same, but they can be treated differently by who is doing the treating. And what I wanted to do is I want to share with you a little bit of, well, a few stories. So the video that I released a short time ago showed a deflasking in the laboratory that involved a large number of people. And what happens when you do that, you show people how to do it. They watch you or not, carefully or not, and then they're usually off their own, and I'm correcting when I can. But what happens is that different people that are doing the deflasking, even though it's the same orchids, the same media, the same conditions, the same environmental conditions, depending on how these people take the plants apart when they remove them from the flasks, and depending on how they rinse the medium off the roots, and how roughly or gently they treat the plants, you can have very different results. Now, sure, the plants are going to survive, but they're going to do different depending on who is actually handling the plants and how the plants are being planted. So when I have explained deflasking and even transferring cultures, I usually put out a large number of points. You do, you know, A through Z. And most people, what they do when they're deflasking and when they're doing everything, when they're working in the laboratory, they can handle A, B, C, D, maybe E, F, but they don't really pay attention to all of the details. It's a little bit too much. You know, maybe the second time, the third time, or the fourth time. So maybe that's how many times you should be watching each of my videos in order to learn a little bit more every time. No, just kidding, unless you want to. What happens is people handle them differently, and then you get different results. So about a year ago, I had a large-scale deflasking in this same laboratory where a lot of different people come in. I think there might have been 12 or 13 different people came in, and that was crazy. But most of the people left their deflast plants with me. And what happened from that, and then I took care of them. So I grew the plants in the flasks, I then took care of the plants, or they deflasked the plants, and then I took care of them in the laboratory. They were all in the same place, so I replaced the water weekly, I sprayed them down weekly, I treated all the plants the same, and what I noticed, and it was really interesting, but what I noticed is that one or two people, Chelsea was the best. Her sister was pretty close, but what happened, they were the same. But what happened was the plants from a few people just really looked better after 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, and 6 weeks when I returned it to them. But there was a real difference because some of the people, not Chelsea, some people grabbed the biggest plants. Some people did things, you know, a little differently. What I get a lot of when I do deflasking in the laboratory is people tell me, oh, I've been doing this. I've been growing orchids for 30 years. I know how to plant the seedlings. I've been doing this for 45 years, so I know how to do this, and then I know how to take the plants out of the flasks and acclimate them and grow them. I've been doing that for, like I said, 45 years. But what some people say is they think that they know better, so they're going to treat the orchids like they treat their seedlings, and they're going to do things different, and then other people just don't pay attention. And then Chelsea and her sister apparently paid attention, and they did things just right. I think from knowing these two people, I think that they just were a little less rough on the orchids when they deflasked them. They were gentle when they removed the medium from the roots. When they planted the plants, they paid attention to how I showed them, when I showed them what to do. And they just did things a little bit differently. And I think there's a lot of, it's really important to actually maintain the orientation and do the less damage on the roots as possible. I've seen some people just really rub the roots and break them off. I've seen some people cut off the roots in the freshly deflasked plants, and sure, they'll survive and they'll do okay, but you want them to do the best. That's what you want. And so it's important to kind of be gentle, maintain the orientation, and treat them just really carefully. What I want to do today is show you a few different things. So I want to show you when I transfer the seedlings from the petri dishes here, which is the first replate, to the second replate, which is in these flasks right here. I want to show you how I do this. And the way that I do this, I try to have really minimal disruption. I grab, I call it a mass transfer. I grab the orchids that are in here. I loosen up the roots on the periphery because the roots stick to the side of the petri dish. And I try to lift them out and drop them down in the flask very carefully. The diameter here is a little bit smaller than the diameter here, so they fit down in here nicely. You can see I've done all of and it's fast too. I've done all of these right here, but the other thing that's important is that it's least disruptive to the tissue. So I want to show you how I do this first, and then I also want to show you how I transfer the really small seedlings from the seed germination to the first replate medium that's right here. And again, what I try to do when I do this is I do it very gently. I try to pick up the seedling and then transfer it the same way to the next medium. I don't squeeze it. Minimal disruption as possible. I just try to pick it up, lay it down, pick it up, lay it down, pick it up, and as less handling as possible, and that's good for the plants. So let me do this. I'll speed it up if I need to, and then I'm going to talk to you a little bit more, and then I'm going to have to change the setup a little bit to get my seedlings in here so you can see how I do that, which is just a little bit different. Okay, so first of all, let me clean up a little bit and transfer these two plates to these two flasks. Okay, here we go. Okay, so this I'm done. I'm completed with this. I just wanted to let you know that there is a little bit of medium that was retained in the old dishes. Normally when I do this, the roots are grown so much it transfers more like just a big chunk. And these might not have been far enough along. I thought they were, but I was wrong. And so both of these, some of the medium was left behind. Now what happens is the new medium is in there underneath the old medium, and then the orchids are on top of that. And just through general diffusion, the medium components can move through the old medium from the new medium into the old medium and then into the orchids, and the roots will grow down. But I tried, again, the whole idea is to try to be as disruptive as possible. Just so you know, this hybrid I'm pretty excited about. So this is a hybrid where Tainan Gold that is just flowering incredibly well in my collection right now. So this was, I think, maybe a cross that was made about a year ago. With Tainan Gold was a parent, and this has green veil has a parent in this one right here. So these are two different hybrids, so I'm going to label them with the tape here, seal these guys up, and put all of these guys away, and then get set up to show you how I transfer my seedlings. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, and we're back. So my setup is now a little bit different. I wrapped all the flasks, labeled everything, put those away, and now I'm set up to transfer seedlings in these petri dishes underneath this microscope. The people in the laboratory that have good eyes don't need a scope. I've always felt more comfortable working underneath this dissecting microscope. It takes a little bit of a coordination to do this, or getting used to, but it's what I've been doing for a long time, and this is what I'm comfortable with. I do want to tell you another little story here about why I need the scope and what I'm going for and what I do when I transfer the seedling. So again, what I try to do is with an instrument like this. So with this forceps, this is a real fine tipped forceps, and what you can do is grab the seedlings really delicately and carefully with this instrument. And this is a nice instrument made in Germany. It's the brand on it is Esculap. I think that's how you say it. But this is a really nice forceps. It cools down really quickly. It's very delicate. You can keep a really small distance between the two tips of the forceps, and I really like these instruments. I have a lot of them. They're not that much. I think they cost only like $35 each if you can find them. The challenge has been, at least in the U.S., it's finding a supplier of these instruments. So the last time I found them, I bought, I think, about 10 of them. Anyway, great tool. And as you can see, I think you can see right here, I've got three of them here cooling off, and then one that I wanted to show you for demonstration purposes. When I do transfers in the laboratory here, I actually do a two-handed transfer. So I hold the forceps in a way, and I put my finger on the top, and what this allows you to do is get really fine control when you transfer things from this dish to the dish that they're going in, which is right here, which is just an empty dish. The other thing that I wanted to share with you is a story of, I've been doing this with orchids more recently, but for most of my career, I transferred very small pieces of tissue of soybean, embryogenic cultures of soybean, and they were small. They were a few millimeters in size, and I would transfer the tissue, and again, I would break them up underneath the scope and transfer the tissue and move them from one dish to another dish and get growth. There were a number of different people in the laboratory that I tried to train on how to transfer. As simple as it sounds, I tried to train on what tissue to select and how to transfer these cultures. Some people could do it. Other people, didn't matter how many times they watched me or what I told them, they just couldn't do this. And you think it's silly and you think it's simple, but what I would do is I would show somebody in the laboratory how to do it, and then I would put my dishes right next to their dishes. Again, same starting material, same medium that these tissues were transferred to. And the interesting thing is the tissue that I transferred always seemed, in most cases, to grow faster. So the individual embryogenic clusters that I would transfer would grow bigger, greener, quicker. And it's because, again, I would tell the people that I was training, there are these clumps of embryos, and when you break them apart, you have to break them apart very carefully. Again, I was under the scope. Some of the other people, they started under the scope, and then all I could see enough with my eyes, but maybe they couldn't. And you would break up these clumps of tissue and transfer them so that the previous surface that was at the top was at the top when they were transferred. Again, you had to have minimal disruption. You could break apart these clusters in such a way so that you wouldn't smash them. You would just, they were friable, so they would crumble apart, but you had to do it very carefully with just the right pressure, which is what I could see under the scope, and maybe the other people couldn't see as well. So when again, I did side by side. Everything was the same except for the operator, the person transferring the tissue. Sometimes their clusters even were bigger that they transferred. Sometimes they were smaller than mine, but my clusters always, in most cases, grew best. With the orchids, I'm not sure that they're quite the same level of complexity, but I tend to do the same thing. I look at them under the scope, I separate these seedlings very carefully, and then I transfer them onto these new plates. So I can show you how I do one plate just like this from this angle, and then I'll move and get a little bit closer so you can see with a little bit more detail about what I'm doing. So let me first transfer the seedlings from this plate, and what I do is I make a 5x5 grid from here to here. I make a 5x5 grid, so it's going to take a little while to do this. All right, so let's get started. Okay, there was a lot of, so there's a lot of things going on. So these guys, I hadn't done this before. So these guys, these seedlings, they're pretty dense. They were sticking together, even when there weren't that many of them in the same area. They tend to stick together. So I had to carefully take the tip of the forceps and kind of pry them apart. And again, that's what you got to be careful about doing, is gently. You've got to gently kind of tear these embryo. If there's two seedlings that are growing together, you got to tear them apart. So what I do again is I make a 5x5 grid, and I put a lot of effort into this first plate here, so that the subsequent transfers that I showed you previously are much smoother. You can just take them all out and transfer them in bulk, and you don't have to split them up again. You just can transfer them. All right, so that was this plate. And I should also mention, in addition to them sticking together, there were two of these that were that had roots on them, which was very unusual. Some of these guys are big, and what I do, in addition to separating them and being delicate with them, I go for the big ones. Some people have told me that the bigger, you get the best ones and you transfer those, and so I transferred all the good ones here. But some people say, oh no, the small ones are going to give the best flowers. Well, I'm not sure I want to wait for that. And I've had different people, different breeders tell me the different things, and I don't know. I would prefer to have the big, vigorous seedlings than the bigger growers, so that's what I'm going for, and I can select those very easily from these plates. All right, what I'm going to do is change the position of the camera. I'm going to go on the other side of me and focus in on here, so hopefully you'll be able to see the transfers close up. Okay, so let's switch things up a little. Okay, and we're back. So I'm going to go through here and try not to get in your way so that you can see what's going on and how I pick these guys apart. All right. as you know, I'm not sure if you saw that. You probably did. So I dropped one right here, and you know, sometimes you just put a lot of time into this, and you just drop them. What I want to do while I've got this thing set up, I'm gonna get a close-up with my camera of the dish. So this is a higher magnification view of the Petri dish and what I worked in, and what you can see is the seedlings in here, and there's leaves that are forming, but hopefully you can see how tight this is and how some of these seedlings are stuck together. So this is where I have to tease them apart. All right, let me get set up for a final word, and we're off. Okay, and we're back, and all I wanted to show you today was how I transferred the orchid seedlings in the laboratory, both from the first seed germination plate to the first replate, and then from the first replate medium to the final replate medium, which is the large flask. And just to tell you a little bit of story about, you know, how I handle the seedlings. And again, I've been doing this, the tissue culture side of it, not necessarily on orchids, but for other plants for many, many years. And I'm still learning how to grow orchids. All right, that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed my video. If you did and you want to keep on seeing them, it would help me out if you can click on like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you're not already a subscriber. All right, that's all I have for today. Again, I hope you enjoyed it, and happy propagating.